implemented this one time and then we come up with more. Yes.
Sweet. All right, good morning, everybody. We'll call the meeting of Mendocino County Board of Education to order. Start with the flag salute, pledge allegiance. Join me. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 1.2, approval and adoption of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move we adopt the agenda for the day.
So second over here. All in favor say aye. Aye. Moving on to 1.3, approval and adoption of the minutes of 4/8/24. Do I hear a motion?
Second. Oh, I thought, okay, I did.
I hear a motion over there and a second from Marlene. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to public participation, 1.4. Public participation.
There's no public participation today.
All right, no correspondence or consent agenda, so we're moving on to 4.1, discussion and action, starting with resolution 4.1, specification of election order.
Yep, so the attachments are there. You can see we have 2 seats that are coming open at the end of this term, and so we wanted to make sure that we got these to you. And so the first attachment is just informational, and the second attachment is what the board needs to approve today. Is that right,
Correct.
Veronica?
And this is just the approval of consolidating our election with the other districts, and the other districts are also doing the same resolution.
I move approval.
I'll second. Your second over here. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. On to 4.2, approval of the Special Education Local Plan Agency, Community Advisory Representative.
This, excuse me.
This is the SELPA one?
This is the
Yes,
self, it
this
looks like
is-
we're nominating somebody or approving somebody,
Yes, I'm just trying to.
appointing somebody.
Delaying. We are, yes, that is what you're doing. Karina Jolie as a parent of a student in our district to serve on the community advisory board. So this is a good thing. We want to make sure that we have parent voice and that our schools are represented on the advisory board.
I got the impression that these people are hard to come by.
Yes. It's a thankless job, but super important.
Yeah.
And so she's already, I believe, has already attended some meetings, not necessarily, I don't know that she's had any voting rights, but she's being involved.
Does she have a child in the program?
Yes, in order to be in this position, I believe you have to have a child in our program.
If you have communication with them, please thank them for the.
Will do, yes.
Second that. Yeah, and I know one of the LCAP goals has been parent involvement, so
Right.
this is a good job achieving that.
Yes.
Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
I approve the resolution.
Over there, do I hear a second? Second over here. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to 4.3, proclaiming May as Child Care Provider Appreciation Month.
Yes, and we have a presentation later on in the agenda, but this is a proclamation. May is Child Care Provider Month, and this resolution is for this board to adopt that as well. And Kristen, do you want to add anything to that that's not in the report?
Sure, I'll just say that the local Child Care Planning Council, which is a part of the Early Learning and Care Department, has put this proclamation forward to the Board of Supervisors and the Board of Education for the last many years. And I'm happy to have you recognize the importance of childcare, not just for children, but for families too, because it has an economic impact on our communities.
I liked the way it was written. I thought it was, I don't know, I thought it was more apropos than the last one for some reason.
Well, all right, I'll take that note, thank you.
I had a question about the wording of the resolution. When I was scanning it, the last part, now therefore be resolved that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Mendocino. And I think that's just a typo before
Yes.
we formally sign a document.
Good catch, thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
So if the board takes action on this, it would be to take action on it with the correction of Board of Education.
Thank you.
Good catch. Do I have a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Moved by Larry, do I hear a
With
second?
the stipulation of the minor change.
Yeah, minor change. We are not the board of supervisors, last time I checked.
I'll second.
Alright, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Alright, moving on to 4.4, approval of the comprehensive school safety plans.
Yep, I'm not opening it. Do you want to?
It also says Board of Supervisors.
The comprehensive school safety plan does?
Oh, am I on the same one? Oh, I just,
We have
Oh.
the,
change. Oh, there we go, okay. I opened a second one.
Oh, okay.
Twice.
So the comprehensive school safety plan, Kaylee Heath was not able to attend the meeting today. She's done majority of the work on this, with a group of people, Veronica being included, and with the school site administrators. This is a report that we have to do annually. The board needs to approve it. And this work will continue, every year, so you'll be seeing this report every year. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those for you.
were there any big changes from this year, from the previous year?
I wouldn't say big changes. At the community school, Tawny Fernandez really kind of dove in and really tried to make sure everything was really refined to reflect what's actually happening at her school site, and we'll continue to do that every year.
She did a good job.
Yeah.
What did it have, 130 pages on
And
on the
then
one
two
for
on
the
the first, and then.
community schools?
Certainly comprehensive.
Take that with Word docs.
You want to use them?
Is, I understand their importance. Is there a legal requirement for this detail?
Yes. Legal and also for our insurance.
For insurance, thank you. That
Yeah.
also makes perfect sense, because I read it it was so precise and so down to the detail that made me wonder actually about its importance, because I don't think an agency would put that kind of energy and staff time and dedication to the point unless it had connotations.
Yes, and Kylie Heath, who's our risk manager, she is kind of the gold standard when it comes to risk management, and so the documents that she produces are usually meet all the requirements of anyone who will be looking at them, and sometimes go above and beyond. So it's we want to make sure that this work is not just meeting the requirement, but something that can be held as an exemplar to others that need to do it.
It may be, and in the reports, it looks like she's also doing a whole lot of stuff at community and West Hills, keeping things in order. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on either of the plans? Hearing no more, I'll hear a move to approve them both, approving the school comprehensive safety plans.
So moved.
That was a dead tie, but I'll go over here. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
It wasn't serious. Alright, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 4.5, take action on board policies and bylaw.
So this one was one that actually came to you guys last month. But when we submitted it into the FPM, they were like, there's missing language of the disciplinary actions. So this one, like Marilyn indicated last month, does have the highlighted where we made the addition at the end. So this will clear our finding for that particular FPM.
And FPM, for anyone watching, that is federal program monitoring.
Yeah, pretty simple changes, just one paragraph there at the end.
I think the area we struggled with is that Gamut didn't quite have that language yet, and so I had to go dig in through other county offices. And we're like, how did you guys clear this finding? So we found the language, and that's it.
Thanks for the detective work.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments on that one? Hearing none,
I move adoption.
we move over there. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second over here. All in favor, say aye. That concludes the discussion action portion of the meeting. We'll move now to the information and discussion. Starting with 5.1, news release, California County Superintendent's Art Initiative publication.
It is a happy coincidence that Dr. Maya Stewart is here to do a presentation. We wanted to share this with you. This is part of a bulletin that includes what every county office of education is doing regarding arts initiative. And Dr. Maya Stewart is our contact person, so she is the one that put this together to make sure that we were represented along with the other counties, and we just wanted to share that information with you.
Any comments or questions on this one? I see some nice student art in there.
I can say that as far as the 58 counties go, we're doing quite well considering we are, small and rural, but also mighty in the art world.
It's good to hear.
It also goes along with the nature of the culture of Mendocino County. There is such a wealth of talent, expression, diverse music, art, expression of all sorts. And it goes to the roots of the county, but having not lived here, through my major adult life, it was always like, I don't believe it. And then when we began to reach out and had good fortune to be in touch with a couple of performers, Alex DeGrassi and Wendy DeWitt, and people that then just Spence Brewer, and the more that you learn about this and then get dabbled in the Arts Council a little bit, you're saying, I can't believe this population produces that ratio of highly skilled people. So it is sort of like, I hope our young people are getting the message on that one.
Yeah.
Rich history.
I'll jump off of that. As a student who went through schooling here, it was so cool to have, theater and circus and pottery and like all of these like collages and paintings and just a huge wealth of art.
Thanks for
It was really
mentioning
cool.
the circus too.
You had circus.
That was incredible.
Juggling, silks, trapeze.
Wow.
I never did that. I was afraid of heights, but there was a few students I remember, like a career fair, did this beautiful silk thing from the roof of the school. It was very cool.
What's the old saying? It's not dangerous, it's just unforgiving.
All right, we'll move on to 4.2, presentation on the annual state of the preschool program.
Yes, Kristen Hills is here, our Director of Early Learning and Care, to present on this.
Hi, yeah, so we usually put this just as part of the Ed Services updates for the board, but I just wanted to spend a little time with you guys so I can talk more about that in my report to the state and say we also did a presentation to the board. So, and I think it's an interesting topic, but of course I'm a bit biased. So, in any case, every year we are required to do an annual self-evaluation, and I'm just the documents are included in your packet, but I'm going to give you an overview so that you don't have to read every word on all of those pages that you have with you. So, Veronica, oh, perfect, thank you. So this is due annually in June, and it requires a review of the program instrument, which is very similar to the document, the FPRM that we just had for our whole agency, but it's just for state preschool. There's 20 areas that are measured by various documents and quality indicators, and then they're grouped into key dimensions is what they're called. And for each one, we have to evaluate how we're doing in that key dimension and then either talk about the plan that we have to continue to do that well or any deficiencies we might notice, what we can do to improve those next year. And then the last thing is that we are required, of course, to include both our staff and our board in the process. So this is me, including you guys. We don't need approval necessarily, but I just wanted to give you the information. And of course, take any feedback you might have, answer any questions. With our center staff, every February, we go through the instrument at one of our site supervisor meetings so that each site supervisor can see, oh, am I meeting this? How am I meeting this? These are some of the things that are turned into us to really go through very carefully. Other things they keep on site. So it just gives us a chance to really connect on all of these measures. So, next slide, thanks. So the first key dimension is family files. There is a wealth of paperwork required for family eligibility of services. We also have a lot of paperwork that we have to keep for Title 22, which is health and safety. And then the next key dimension is family engagement and strengthening. So we do referrals to local services for families. We also have family engagement activities, like we have well, I'll go through them more later. And then the key dimension 3 is program quality. That's really kind of the heart of our work. I think it's the part that certainly we all get the most excited about because it's really improving the services we're providing for children. Then there's administrative, which covers inventory and purchasing processes and the self-evaluation process. And lastly is fiscal and audit. So for family files, we are meeting all of these requirements. We have very specific guidelines from the state on the selection processes and family eligibility. There are a lot of ways that families can be eligible now. So our income guidelines are pretty high. You can make up to 115 at the state median income and still qualify. So that ends up being about 10,600 for a family of 4. So it's reasonable. A lot of families don't think they'll qualify and then they find out that they do, so that's great. We also can serve children who have an IFSP, an individual family service plan, or an IEP, an individual educational plan. And then there are various other ways that we can serve children. So we have a due process that's okay for appeals. If parents disagree with our decision to enroll them, then they can go through a due process with the state. We also have handbooks for families, and we share, including attendance requirements for the families, and then we report all of that to the state. And the state reimburses us based on our attendance normally. We're still in a hold harmless right now from COVID, so, and that hold harmless is what they're calling it, is extended through 25-26. We are gonna be doing centralized enrollment is kind of a big deal. We're taking that item off the plate of the sites. So when a family wants to enroll, they'll actually scan a QR code now, and it goes into our central eligibility system, and we have our data specialists that will be enrolling families. We're going out to sites so they can still enroll in their own community. They don't have to go to MCOE to enroll. And if they don't have Wi-Fi at their house, they can access that at the school site still. So it still allows people to enroll at their sites, but it takes all of that administrative burden off the plate of the teachers. So the teachers can really focus on teaching and the quality of the program and connecting with families, and we can take care of the paperwork side. Speaking of families, family engagement is a really big part of our program. So we do family conferences twice annually. There is an open door policy that's required, just that while your children are in care, you are absolutely welcome to enter the center. We do a family orientation, usually at the beginning of the year, and then throughout the year, there's also various educational and involvement activities that we do, invite families to come and learn how play helps their child academically, for instance. We have a family advisory council, and those need to happen at the site at least quarterly, and that's just the time for parents to be able to give feedback on the program. Family referrals and follow-up, so if a family has concerns about their child, we could absolutely help them with referrals to services. We usually say that they should wait a couple of months so that we can observe the child and work with them for a couple of months to see where they're really at. But we absolutely take, that family concern really seriously. It's good for us to have a heads up. But we also look out for families, and if they need help with housing or food assistance or dental, we find them some resources that we have. Any questions about any of the family related items? Program quality. So this is the biggest section that has the most indicators. We're meeting all of these as well. Every site is licensed and compliant with the health and safety regulations through licensing. We have a child to staff ratio of 1 adult to 8 children. That's the minimum. At many of our sites, we have a higher ratio. So for instance, at our inclusion sites where we serve a higher percentage of children with IFSPs and IEPs, we run a 1-to-4 in many cases. So that's great that they have that much support. There are really specific staff qualifications. We're struggling a little bit with this right now, but we are meeting the qualifications. There are various waivers in place. With the advent of TK, 4 of our 16 site supervisors moved on to being TK teachers, which is wonderful for them. It's the same age children they're working with in state preschool, so we think it's really good for kids too. And it's good for their wallets, it's good for their salaries, so we're happy for them as well to support them in that. But that doesn't mean we have a lot of new site supervisors, people that need classes, but we are providing them with a lot of funding right now to do that. So if someone has the energy, we can help them achieve their goals in that area. Staff development program, so we do have monthly meetings where they come together every month, and we have time for peer sharing, we have time for open Q&A. I usually have a topic or two I'm wanting to train them on. And those are usually database decisions we're deciding. Looking at all the reporting and the tools that we use, which items we need to look at improving. So if there's, say, one area of language and literacy scores are not maybe where we would hope they would be, then we might look at how that interacts with the environment and how we can have more opportunities for children in that area in their classrooms, just as an example. The tool we use to assess children is called the Desired Results Developmental Profile. There's the entire instrument has 56 measures. We do a medium amount. There's a smaller amount that is actually all that's required, but we do a little bit more. It's 43 measures across various domains. There is, our results for this year are linked there. It's an observational tool, so we don't sit and test children. We just take observations throughout their day with their activities and in their play, because we can observe their skills in that way. And we do one in the fall and one in the spring. And you'll see that every domain has an increase. So we're doing our job. We also use the Early Childhood Environmental Rating Scale. And that's, we shorten that to ECHRS because we love to have our acronyms, right? That does, it looks at the environment. We're actually changing next year due to state guidelines. We're going to be using a new tool called the Classroom Assessment Scoring System instead. And it looks more at interactions, which I think is fantastic because that's really where the teaching takes place in early childhood, is in those teacher-child interactions. Kind of scaffolding that we're providing all the time, helping them add to their knowledge without talking at them necessarily. And then the last thing is we do an annual family survey and make any changes based on the results of that. So that's our program quality. The administration section is on inventory and self-evaluation. So we have to look at our inventory practices. Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, forgive me.
No, you're fine.
When I was looking at incredible detail, I opened because it was on the last slide and
Yes.
it may be part of your presentation, but the Desired Results Developmental Profile, DRDP.
Yes.
I opened that and I really need somebody to help me read it.
Sure. Yeah.
Understand it and
We can pull it up and look at it.
And when that time comes, and I don't know about other board members, but I tried to say, how do I get information from this? Because it was
Sure.
bars with headings and so
Sure. Yes.
in color.
Yes. It looks nice. Right.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that while Veronica's pulling it up. We do these really beautiful assessments, and then we're the only people, I mean, we explain them to families, of course, at the family conferences that we have. But it would be lovely if this system talked to the TK-12 system. We're doing a lot of work on that right now. When we hand these to TK or K teachers, they don't necessarily know what the measures refer to either. So I'm happy to walk you through it.
And I don't want to take you off track for your
Oh,
time.
no, it's fine. This is really, I think, the heart of our program right here. So there's different developmental domains that we look at. And these are all based on the California State Preschool and Transitional Kindergarten Learning Foundations and Curriculum Frameworks. How's that for a mouthful? Yeah, we just say the foundations and frameworks most of the time. But they break a child's development down into these different areas. So approaches to learning and self-regulation is how well a child is able to engage and be persistent through activities, how curious they are, can they self-soothe when they get upset, can they solve problems. So you can see that black line is the mean score. So there's also a range at the top there. This range is for 0 to 5 actually, from responding earlier and it goes all the way up to integrating later. And the reason that this is a scale is because we look at assessments a little different in early childhood. There's not necessarily one point where you're like, all 3-year-olds should be here. It's much more fluid. Development is much more fluid at this age, and so children may be at different places when they come to us. But we're serving mostly 3-year-olds right now, so if that gives you an idea of the 0 to 5 range, we're doing pretty well. Okay, going into kindergarten would be where the integrating earlier is. And you'll see there are percentages under each area. So for example, for approaches to learning, self-regulation under spring 2024, there's 1% of our children who are responding later in that area. There are 5% who are exploring earlier, et cetera. So the colors go with those different areas of development. And the black line is the mean assessment.
That's the median.
Yes. Does that help?
Oh, beautifully, thank you.
Good.
It didn't occur to me to read it like I was supposed to.
No, it's fun. It's fun. That's what I'm here for anyway, is to walk through all this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm a little unclear on the terms here.
Sure.
You know, we have pre-K, early childhood
Yes,
education.
happy to walk you through that.
I think there's a couple of more around there. Are they all referring to the same program?
Yeah, so I'm presenting to you guys today on the state preschool program that is our contract. So we have 16 sites, it's very specific state guidelines. That's CSPP is what that's abbreviated to usually for California State Preschool Program. UPK is the larger suite of programs, pretty much anything that is available to 3 and 4-year-old children. So that would include TK, transitional kindergarten. It's very confusing and parents are confused and people who work for MCOE it's not easy. So don't sweat it. We're a lot of part of our website actually, work, hopefully next year, we're gonna have a UPK page for families because it's been confusing for families to know what their child is eligible for, what programs should they be looking for, what's best for my child. There's different requirements for different programs, there's a lot of information. We have a very fractured system in our state.
It's good to know I'm not alone.
You are not alone. No. So does that help?
Yes.
Okay, great. But when you hear UPK, it's really any program for 3 and 4-year-olds. TK is specifically for school districts, 4-year-olds. And then state preschool is us. This is the one area that I did write a plan of correction per se. It's not like a finding or anything, but I do think that our inventory processes need to get a little tighter. And part of that has to do with being a consortium. So we have, the state gives us funds. We do have one site here, Talmadge, but a lot of our money goes out to the districts to run their state preschool program. So they can pay the employees and run the facility. Those are the parts the districts take care of. We take care of the program itself. So training and compliance and all of those things, paperwork, dealing with licensing. When we give this money to the districts, sometimes they're not aware of the inventory practices we have to follow, so we need to close that loop up a little bit, and we're gonna be working on that a little more. We didn't realize either, I think, that we have the detail for the money that we spend exactly as we should, but we wanna make sure we're getting all that information. Shannon Langevin, who is a grant administrator, she and I went to a 2-day
fiscal training in Sacramento in October and sort of learned a little bit more about that and went, oh, okay, so we can do a better job of that. And part of that is really just communicating with the districts. And so we'll have that ready to go next year. And our self-evaluation process, I think, is even improving because I was able to come and talk to you guys today. So, that's all going well. Yes, please. And the last one is fiscal and audit, really simple. The reporting that we do to the state, how many children for how many days of attendance and how many days of enrollment. That works very smoothly with our data technician and business services. And then we have the required audit already, so that all of agencies must have. And that's the end, that's all I have.
And one other question.
On the fiscal and audit,
Yes,
is that doable as far as from your side? Is it not take way too much time?
yes, it's nothing extra for me at all.
Oh,
It's
good.
just that business services already is getting an audit, and because our agency as a whole has proof of that audit, we're good. So I love that they take care of that, thank you, Heather.
That's great.
We have one attachment in here that gives us the number of students in the different programs.
Yes,
And it seemed like there's a lot of kids in this program. Has it been growing faster? And then I think those numbers are just for the county, and I'm wondering, are there big numbers for districts around the county too?
so this actually is, the numbers that you guys get are for our programs that are at the districts and ours all together. So we have 17 sites, and I think they're broken down into inland and coastal now. And so so it sort of matches, I think, other information you guys are getting. We have 390 kids right now. Before COVID, we had about 420, 425, so fewer. But you have to keep in mind, there's a lot of shifting happening. A lot of 4-year-olds who we used to serve are now in TK, which means they're in a different program. So they're still being served. We were actually concerned, I'm surprised that we have 390, frankly, and happily surprised. The more 3-year-olds we can reach, the easier time. We can still serve 4-year-olds, by the way. They can still come to our program. It's really up to the families what program works best for them.
Maybe it's too rudimentary, but how does the program and its availability fit into the working mom who drops her kid off at the neighbor, and we have what's called euphemistically daycare? And how does that fit into the overarching system, and how does that work with equity for the kids who are part of that? And I've wondered, because I walked by some daycares, and I wouldn't want my grandchild there.
Are you talking about family childcare homes specifically?
No, just, I was wondering how, I have a 3-year-old, I work, I take that child to daycare.
Mhm.
Is this a type of daycare for them, or down the street, someone brings their child, they go in, and mom there takes care of her own children and their friends'
Oh,
children?
like a co-op.
And all of those things, but how does that fit in with the program of pre-K?
Sure, so, well, we have a part-day state preschool program. Ours is only 3-hour to 4-hour program, depending on the site. It really was designed in the 70s. It was designed for the family where you have 2 parents, one is working and one is at home. And the parent who's at home is bringing the child for 3 hours for educational enrichment, socialization, and then bringing the child home.
Thank you.
It isn't really a fit anymore for a lot of our families, and
Yeah.
so, especially as half of our kids go to TK, we're looking at different options, but probably not until 25, 26. We could offer a longer day of service, but then we would have to offer service in the summertime when schools are closed, so it's a little complicated. It's actually really complicated. Yeah, lots of things we're looking at though. It is a need, longer days.
Isn't there a program called Kudos that helps fill in that gap?
You know, they can't serve, if your child is TK or older, then they can go to a lot of these summer programs. But if they're 3 or younger, there's not a lot out there, right, yeah. And we're seeing
fewer and fewer services in our county for that age range. It's a more complicated thing, but, yeah. But state preschool is doing well, and very happy with the services we're able to offer for the families that program fits. So,
Thank you, Kristen.
yeah, you bet.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I just have one more question. You kind of answered it, but have you seen anything change from before COVID? You alluded that the numbers were down, but I'm sure you can talk for hours on that.
I could, and I won't, to save you all. Are you talking about how children are coming to our programs developmentally, or what question exactly are you?
Just in general, sort of like what you have seen.
We have seen an increase in speech and language referrals. We have seen children who are very comfortable with devices more. I think part of that's time, part of it might be COVID. And we have seen attendance patterns change a lot. Families are not bringing their child 5 days a week necessarily, and that's rough. It's hard on the kids and and I know it's hard on families too, so it's not a criticism of families. I think there's just more issues families are having to deal with economically right now too. So we're seeing more referrals to social services as well.
Anything you found successful in dealing with the devices?
Really, exposure to hands-on activities and socialization is the best thing. So we don't use screens very much it depends on the site, but I do, a lot. We do have maybe a few that might use it for a video for circle time for dancing and movement or something. But for the most part, like, we don't have iPads in our program. We really try and stick to hands-on activities because they're getting plenty of that time at home. And you can teach 21st century skills later. They don't have to be when they're 3. So that's just my personal opinion, but yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Wonderful presentation.
Yeah, thanks so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Appreciate your time, everyone.
Thank
Appreciate
you. That'll take us to 5.3, the Local Control and Accountability Plan, also called the LCAP.
Yes, so this is LCAP season for sure. So this was on the agenda last month, it's here, and then we have 2 meetings in June for the LCAP. So
We were hoping to collect some of the documents that we gave you to provide some feedback, so we can, or if you'd like to share with them out loud right now, so we can add them into the minutes and also into the actual LCAP of the board feedback.
Does anybody want to start?
Question about, we had the documents, and of course, if they're places we mark them up, is it easier, or would we profit from a discussion of this, or just give you the scratches?
It's probably easier to collect the feedback, and then we could, because you're gonna have one more meeting where you're gonna be able to see what we indicated as far as all of this, the feedbacks were from the different groups that we collected that from, so that would probably be the easiest, unless you have specific questions or comments.
Your
What was exciting to me was to see things carried forward and what we've done work on, and then the ones that they said we didn't get this done, but it's still the same form. I remember how we struggled, the people who were doing this the first year. And it was so, I don't know, it was just kind of confusing to them, and that they figured it out, and it's great form. And it was that year too, because they figured it out, but it was a lot more, I think this is simpler as it goes along, I hope.
I have to confess, I look at this, and I sort of get the feeling this makes somebody at the state level happy. But I also wonder if all of the work it takes really transfers over into the classroom.
Several years ago, I think it was Charlene that asked for a list of the MCOE acronyms.
Oh.
Remember that rascal?
Yeah.
I still have
And
it.
it's interesting because it was filled with A's and B's and C's, and you got down to the M's and N's, there were fewer. And when you got to the S and the T's and the U's, there were very few. And I thought that the poor individual that was trying to put this together. So then you bring us LCAPs. And what is a PD, a WH, a CCSS? And it was all of a sudden you're dealing in the realm of the educator who perhaps tosses those out, as Kristen did, and as so many of you do, and bringing myself at least up to speed on maybe you could wait a minute and put a parentheses around something. So, yeah, I struggled with the acronyms in order to get an understanding of what it is was being said. I don't know, this is by no means a complaint. I thought it was more an observation and kind of funny, really, in terms of, I don't know if Charlene wanted to ask again, but it would probably be a lot thicker.
The new acronym. We'll make a point to try to update our acronym list to reflect what is on in LCAP too.
Well, and I think that part of the LCAP feedback process is so that when we end up with a final document that's posted on our website and available to the public, that to the extent that is possible, it is understood by the public.
Thank you.
And I think that, Larry, you bring up a good point. At some point in the document, before using the acronym, we should fully state the acronym. Because, and some of these are like 2 lines, they would take up 2 lines. So the abbreviation is warranted, but maybe not the first time in the document. So I think that brings up a really good point. And I think to Dawn, to your point, like how much of this relates or, is realized in the classroom. I think quite a lot of it is, there's always a question when you're talking about professional development, whether it's what's described here or in any professional development plan, does that professional development do something positive for the students? And that is where, no matter who does the PD, where it's done, that's always the question. I think that is a question that we are often asking is like, what's the actual result? We're always trying to make sure that we're doing professional development that is not just a build up and excitement and then nothing actually changes or is improved, but part of this process is intended to examine that. So you asked the exact question that this document, I think, one of the reasons this document is important is to ask that very question. And I don't know, Shane, you work a lot more closely with this than I do. Did you want to add anything to that?
I think the only thing I would add is that we really are developing, this is the new 3-year LCAP that we're developing, and we really are trying to make this document be the base of what we are going to be doing. I know that in the past, at some sites, it's been kind of just a compliance type of thing, just to check the box to get it to the state, but we really are diving in to try to make this a meaningful document that we're going to follow for the next 3 years and not just a check-off list to send to the state. So the purpose is so that these things are making an impact in the
Right.
classroom.
From the standpoint of reality here, my remarks about acronyms were not a complaint or a criticism. And as far as somebody going over there and putting together any more of that kind of work to its point, which would be shared with us, I think it's probably human energy that could be used someplace else better.
Yeah, we're really not the only agency that holds a list of acronyms. This has been going on for a very long time, so.
Oh, boy. There's Title I and Title IX. The challenges of years ago. Go ahead.
Did you print that one yourself or did you get mailed a copy? I didn't get a copy.
I think they're all given one at some point.
Okay.
Oh, Oh, I'm sorry, they,
Oh, that was in our
I
last packet. Was
printed,
it in our last packet?
yeah.
Okay.
they were, I printed.
Oh, you printed that, okay.
I think Charlene has a question.
So,
Going back to your acronyms, once we had a long list, and thanks to Yolanda. And I think that was you that did it, right?
I didn't
Oh.
create the document, but I do, yes, I did give it to you.
Someone, then maybe it was before your time, but we got a long list, but it was almost so inclusive. It was really hard to get what it really stood for. And I got that feeling last night, I thought I should remember those and all that, but is there a way we could, as they're going along,
I'm sure we can find a way within this document to fully state the name of each acronym at least one time, so
right,
that it's a point of
and
reference.
have it in bold and red?
We'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
typically first time issues.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, there'll be a test.
On the
Anybody know?
question?
Oh boy, we've got
Yeah.
AYPs and VTSAs and VRLs.
We should all make sure we fill out the input and get it to Veronica so that we can add our input there. Since Shane said it really is.
And I'll pass mine to you.
Moving on to 5.5, educational service presentation.
I think we're actually at 5.4.
Oh, yes, we are. 5.4, selection of board committee to participate in the policy development workshop.
So, yes, last month we got the presentation, and we're excited with the go-ahead to move forward with Gamut. And as you may recall in that presentation, 1 or 2 board members should be appointed by the board to represent them in that work. And I don't think we have dates yet.
We don't.
For that work, so, but those would be during work days, and probably at least 1 full day, most likely, and maybe 2. And so we're hoping that the board, can let us know who you would like us, Drew, as board president, this is the sort of thing that sometimes a board president would do, but availability is also a consideration. So wanted to see how the board would like to proceed with determining who will represent them on in that work.
I'd be excited to participate in it. I think it's really important work. I'm really excited about it.
Thanks.
Well, do you want to have 1, do you want to have 2, because that's the other thing that.
Oh, you could just have one.
Right, so we could go with the vice president and president, or we could go with another person selected. The dates are, I'm not sure how difficult it will be to get dates, but we wanted to get at least 1 board rep so that that person's calendar could be a driving force in the dates that we select with CSBA. So if we're gonna rely on you, Drew, that's fantastic. We got 1 person, and if we want to, much of our work we could try to incorporate 2 and default to 1 if having 2 does not prove to be something that we can schedule.
Does anybody else have a desire to participate in it?
I wouldn't mind, but it would be the kind of thing that you guys would decide, and there's 5 of us that could do that, and I don't bring any particular background or anything that would make me a good choice.
And Marilyn, if your schedule's a conflict, we can also see about Gamut doing like paper or electronic ahead of time, so you guys can, when you do come, you can come more prepared it doesn't take up as much as your time. Cause I know you
I
have a work
have
schedule.
work conflict and a bunch of family stuff going on right now, so I could be there in body but not mind.
Does Drew have to do it today?
We just need to know who to schedule with, so we can
Yeah.
use you and work with your schedule to come up with dates. Fantastic.
All right, moving on to 5.5, educational service presentation by Dr. Stewart.
Yes.
morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I get to have the lovely advantage of sharing with you about our 38th annual Science and Engineering Fair that happened in March. And I could not decide on which pictures were best, so you're gonna get a bunch of walls of photos because it was just such a wonderful event. But we wanted to let you know some of the data. So we had 179 students participate, and that includes 136 projects. And you'll see the students really had a fantastic time, and we had 19 schools represented. A lot of our charter schools are very involved in the science fair. I would say that our district schools that have a specific science fair coordinator tend to bring a lot more projects because they are sort of charged with that bandwidth. So I really have to give it to Erin Vaccaro from Willits. She coordinates across multiple school sites, Norma Cox in Laytonville, Kristen Allen in Point Arena. So we do have some, and I'm sure there are more, those are just off the top of my head, but we are seeing a lot of especially middle school participation, which is really wonderful. And one of the things I love about the science fair is students getting to interact with students from different school sites and different contexts that they wouldn't otherwise have a reason to, spend the time to talk about data analysis and how many trials did you run and, why do you love science? So it's a great opportunity to bring a lot of kids together from the different corners of our county. We had 10 projects. We are slotted only 10 projects. Otherwise, we would send more. But 10 projects went to state. And so there in the center is our 14 students that moved on. And I wanted to share on the left, we have students from Manchester. And it was their very first time doing the science fair. And they made it all the way to state. And I particularly love the fact that one of them went back to his instructor and it's the science fair coordinator. And he was like, "You mean I'm smart?" Like, I'm like, wow, just like I could go to college and stuff. And it was just that sort of aha moment of like, wow, okay, I can really do this. And that was wonderful to hear. And just validate, that even though they're from a small, geographically fairly isolated community, they're thrilled to be like, oh yeah, we've got real science happening here. Which felt really good to just validate that is happening. And I wanted to bring some moments of joy, even if, you caught me in a terrible thing. But look at that face, oh my goodness, these cuties. And so I just wanted to share that hundreds of students got a chance to just have such a joyful day. And I think that it was an important event because coming out of COVID and all these things, having this sort of flagship event that MCOE runs every year is not just for the sake of science, but really for that community building aspect. And so it was really nice to see the level of belonging that the students had, how much joy they had, and it felt like an event that everybody involved walked away, a little taller, a little lighter, and feeling that sense of community, which I really think is important. And that includes our volunteers. So I say at least 90 volunteers because even within the day, I saw additional people coming in and helping out. And we had 51 judges. So if you've ever been to our previous science fairs and coming out of COVID, our science fairs, the judging time period ran very long because we didn't have as many judges, right? So you have to take the number of projects divided across the number of judges equals how much time it's gonna take. So having 51 judges, we were able to significantly reduce the judging time, which allowed more time for public display and the community being able to go in and see the projects. It also makes it a little bit of a lighter load on the judges themselves. So I really have to give it to everyone that came and participated as a judge. It was fantastic. And we had 36 MCOE staff members support the event. That's a huge number of people at our agency, all coming on their weekend, right? And I mean, we can see their joyful faces. But I think that it adds that level of teamwork, right? I mean, it's one of our core values, right? And just to really see that service, the teamwork, coming together, supporting student innovation, it really ticks the boxes there. And folks had a wonderful time, and I really super appreciate how many MCB staff members, they signed up right away. Like, I sent out the volunteer form to say who can sign up, who can participate, and they come flying back. And I just deeply appreciate everybody that gives their time and their day. And shout out to Larry and his wife. Thank you so much for coming, and Don for supporting. We had a great day. Nicole was out there even though she wasn't feeling great that day, just like making it happen. So, your support is important to us, and the community really notices. And I think that it was just a wonderful event overall. And we had significant expansion of our STEAM Expo. So Bessie Glossinger over on the right-hand side, I'm sure you probably know her already, she works with expanded learning, and so the expanded learning team really brought their A game with a lot of hands-on projects, and essentially she invited all the expanded learning staff from all over the county and really the region to come and just see how these projects work, so that sometimes, if you say, oh, you're gonna make solar bots with kids, they might think, oh my goodness, like, I'm not an engineer, I don't know if I can make, you want me to make a solar robot? That sounds a little scary, right? But then when you see it in action and you see Bessie working with the students, you realize, oh, this is totally possible. And so it was a way to not only interact with the students and have the students get to participate in all these hands-on activities, but it was also a professional development opportunity for the expanded learning staff to get to see just how many different innovative strategies they can use with students. And all of our community partners that came last year came back, which I think is a real testament to how much fun they were having. Except for one group that was like, we want to make it, but we can't. But you'll see there we have Sonoma Clean Water and Power, we have Mendocino College, we had the Hopland Research Center, the California Native Plants, Mendocino Fire Safe Council, so many different community organizations came to support this event because it was a way for them to not only share some of the innovative job skills that are involved in the careers that they support, but also a way to really just foster that joy in science and engineering. And so I just am so thankful to our community partners for coming out and bringing so many hands-on activities for the students throughout the day. So it was more than a competition. It really had that fair quality due to all this extra effort by our volunteers and community partners. So I'm really proud of them. And everyone had a blast. We had a great time. And that includes continuously improving. We're the continuous improvement department, so we sent out feedback forms and we ask for feedback from all of our volunteers, community partners, and science fair coordinators. So we took all of our learnings from last year and built it into this year, and we have again another document of learnings from our staff and all of our partners to really continue that process, because as the coordinator, I'm only one person and I'm only seeing my perspective on the event. And it's just so deeply important to get that broader lens. And so having so many people participate in the feedback allows us to see a much broader picture of all the little details and, making sure we have enough creamer. Thank you, Nicole. And all those pieces. Yes.
Let me broaden your picture a little bit. I've told this story before. I had a student who did very well at the science fair. He had a project that he took to the state, and won some sort of recognition at the state level even. And I remember I wrote his reference letter when he applied to Stanford, and it was really nice to have, to talk about that, you know, and particularly important, I think, for a student coming from a very small high school.
Mhm.
And he went on and got an engineering degree at Stanford, and now he works for Tesla, and he leads a research team on battery development.
Wonderful.
If I run into him again, I'm gonna borrow money from him.
Yeah, I mean, and we have a lot of opportunities for those kind of resume builders in addition to the science fair itself, having that STEAM Expo. So in the upper right-hand corner, we have our robotics team from Redwood Academy, and just having folks come and facilitate booths. So if they're maybe a little shy or not quite ready for the full science fair experience, maybe they just want to share a little detail. We really try to have multiple pathways for engagement within the whole day's event for whatever the students are comfortable with and able to share with us. So that's been great.
I was going to ask, I got the impression in some of the situations, not so much in the smaller schools, but some of them actually had a competition within their own schools.
Mhm.
And whether it was a dry run or they all went or whatever, but I thought that certainly had to raise interest there too.
Yeah, districts such as Willits that have a very robust science fair history and program, they can't send everyone to county level. And so for those areas where they have a really large amount of participation, we thank them for that effort to run their own local fairs and kind of, choose their select best. When we have programs like UISA participates, for example, that's an independent program. And so the students who put together a project are then moved onto the county level because there is no in-between. But we do offer up an entire handbook to the coordinators that includes all of our rubrics, and we try to be as transparent as possible. And so we do ask that they send us projects that meet a sufficient quality within that rubric design. And those rubrics were designed in partnership with previous judges, and we also basically we did a survey of all the county science fair rubrics we could find, brought them together along with information from the state, and we tried to make the most transparent and empirical rubric we could so that there's not a lot of wiggle room for subjectivity, just because it's difficult to judge when one of the questions is like, creativity on a scale of 1 to 10. Well, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to you? Right? And so we really did try to be as articulate and clear as possible so that what the coordinators have at their district level is as close to what the actual experience will be at the county level as we can.
I just wanted to make a quick comment. I mean, your enthusiasm shows in the outcome of our program, and thank you for that. And I just wanted to clarify, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't you the one who made that wonderful video?
Yes, advertising it by the stream.
I
Oh,
watched it
yeah.
a dozen times. We tried to play it here for everyone to watch because I was so impressed by it. I wanted everyone to see you.
Oh, that was so much fun. I showed up and Brooke is like, what are we gonna do? It's like, it's been raining and everything. And I'm like, well, we want it to rain volunteers. And so we just went with it. Yes, Brooke gave me the challenge of how many puns could I get into a second window.
Not everyone here has Facebook, and so I don't think everyone got a chance to see it. Yeah.
You can send it.
But it is wonderful. It's really a treat to
Cute.
watch.
That was a lot of fun. And it was a lot of fun to just, promote the event with the Facebook live stream as it was happening as well. That's really the point, right? We're trying to foster curiosity, broaden our access as much as humanly possible. So even if the student doesn't have a science fair per se at their district level, for example, right, they can still participate or they can come to the expo, and really trying to broaden access as much as we can, because we want to share the joy of science and engineering as much as we can and show off just how many career pathways exist in Mendocino County that students can both foster their curiosity within our school system and then actually come back and have economic opportunity in our county. And so a lot of the community partners were also trying to show, what you can do with that. So having Mendocino College participate with their ag program, with their soils program, their hydrology department, right? There's a lot of that is, really viable careers in Mendocino County. So we wanted to kind of have that pop as well. And yes.
So you were talking about pathways, can these count as things in the A through G requirements?
The science and engineering practices that are part of the next generation science standards, most of those are met through a science fair project.
Okay.
But it's a process where we want to foster and develop those skills
Sure.
in a way where you're continuously getting more complex and more detailed in the process, going from kinder through 12th grade. So yes, teachers can absolutely meet a significant number of science standards within their projects. They can also meet a tremendous number of their speaking and listening standards for ELA. And if you wanted to get into some of the informational writing, a lot of the frameworks are talking about we really need to not just have the students writing within fiction, but also that informational nonfiction writing. And so I've seen many teachers use the science fair projects as a combined unit of ELA and science together. But that's really just how the teachers individually choose to.
That's great. Thank you.
And this slide is just to give you an idea of some of our current science initiatives, because we have many things going on across our county. And so I shared this with the South Ukiah Rotary, so I wanted you to be in the know as well in case you hang out with those folks. And also just so we can be as transparent as possible that as a continuous improvement department, we're really working hard to, meet the core values. We want service, we want excellence. And so we are doing that with some partnerships this coming year. And we can share more about that later. And lastly, I can show you a quick pic from our, is it not? Oh, it's okay. Our senior naturalist doing some of her work as well.
Yeah, and Charlene, she'll bring you something. She'll bring you something.
And that's all for now.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Just to thank you. I'd oppose if they were gonna put us there. I would have put Susan's face forward and we would have smiled together. Everybody's a critic. Thank
You
you.
can pat you on the back.
Yeah, maybe. Thanks. That's good.
All right, that brings us to item 6.2, 6.1, school program and student enrollment reports. We get this every month, and we've seen now the state preschool has also been changed to have the coastal and inlands separated out. Questions or comments on this one? One of the most consistent between the 2 months I think I've seen of the reports.
That's what I noticed too, the numbers are fairly steady.
This time of year, I think that's.
Which brings us to 6.2, human resources report. Any questions or comments on that one?
The only thing I'll add to this is that our human resources department is hard at work trying to fill positions, and our reports come to you when the positions start, not necessarily when they're informed that they, or when they accept a position. So while it may look like there's not a lot going on in HR right now, that is not the case at all, and because most of these positions that we've been hiring for now start in July, so anyway. Just, I would hate for you to think they're coasting through the spring, they're not, they're pretty busy.
Just wait till the August.
Right.
Yeah. Brings us to 6.3, educational service reports.
That's usually Shane.
Yeah, anybody want to, questions or comments, Shane, will
Yeah.
shout something out from there?
Yeah, obviously, any questions or comments from the report, I did want to specifically call out, we are finishing up this year, the Poets in the Schools that we do every year. And we have our anthology, so what happens is our leader, Blake Moore, she'll create a book out of all of the poems that are created through this program. And so we have last year's cohort of students. We wanted to give you all the opportunity to have a copy. And the poems are in there, the names of the students and what school they're from are connected to them as well. So that's an annual book that's created from this program, and I just wanted to make sure that you all have access to it.
I enjoy it.
Yeah, great, that's great.
I open up to somebody from South Valley and kids who are in particular specific programs and then get a chance to do this. Thank you.
Yeah, so any other questions, comments from the report in general? I know there was a lot of shout outs in the alt ed section, and I wanted to thank Tani Fernandez for her service and her work. She's retiring at the end of this year, and so I know that she is also shouting out her team in the reports as well.
It's all on that.
Then there's a combined principal for the community school as well as Ward Creek and West Hills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if someone has an older copy of these books, you could find some of my poetry. Any other questions or comments for Shane? Looks like we got a lot of money for the adult education.
Yes, so that we are, hope that's gonna help. It's not gonna fix all of our problems, but it's gonna help.
I was really pleased that Eric Crawford is going to start in July for career technical education. What is his role going to be? How does it roll out in terms of his job?
So it'll be multiple facet. He will be in charge of a number of the grants for CTE that we hold. He'll also be working directly with the schools in all different areas of career in college. So we're looking at dual enrollment, talking about CTE pathways, creating those connections. So it's not just CTE, it's also college will be talking with the schools even around if there's some help needed through the A through G completion and dual enrollment like I mentioned before. But there are quite a number of different statewide initiatives around CTE and right now, and so having somebody who can marry them all together is going to be very vital.
That makes sense. And then I'm glad that we have a 2P contractor now. That's been limping this year.
Yes.
And boy, it's good to see that going.
Yep, and that person should be continuing next year as well, so.
Oh, okay, that's kind of where I was going. Thank you.
And it looks like we got some new hires to help out Isaac at Oak Creek. That's really exciting.
Well, we are expanding that program, so to add a high school class, so it is very exciting.
Where is our new principal? Where does Chris Francis come from?
He used to be an MCOE employee,
Oh, okay.
and then most recently, he's been the principal of Oak Manor and Ukiah Unified.
Oh.
And prior to that, he worked, his,
In Alton.
in alt ed here for MCOE.
Okay. Yeah. That's wonderful.
And he has he was a special ed teacher before he became an administrator, so he has a very strong background for the position that he's taken. And then he also was a high school assistant principal for Ukiah High before he came to MCOE, so he has a very strong background. It was almost like he was specifically made for this position.
Wonderful.
We're very excited.
That's great.
All right, any last questions or comments? Move on to, thank you, Shane. 6.4, business and administrative service report from Heather.
I just have a couple of things to share. One, I just want to give a shout out to the maintenance and operations team because they have a lot going on this summer, as you could see in their notes. There's a lot of moves and some facility updates to accommodate those moves. And in addition, we were able to purchase a vehicle, a hybrid van for the foster and homeless youth department, using some AB 130 grant funds that were set to expire as of June 30th. And that's kind of typically, vehicles are not allowable purchases, but due to the circumstances in our county, they were able to allow us to use those grant dollars. That's pretty exciting.
Thanks. Any other comments, questions?
Thank you.
It's always interesting hearing about the phishing email. I always wonder when I see that, did I get sent one of them?
Makes me question myself sometimes too, so.
All right, that brings us to 6.5, superintendent's report from Nicole Hunter.
Springtime's so busy. There's a lot going on. And so we've been to a lot of things. I wanted to start by letting you know that 2 of our districts have hired new superintendents. One is Round Valley, who has hired Stephanie Stefano Davis, who is currently the superintendent in Southern Humboldt Unified School District. So I've met her a couple times now. I'm excited that she's going to Round Valley, and she's excited about coming to Mendocino County. And Anderson Valley Unified has hired Kristen Valier Larson to be their superintendent starting next year. And that name may be familiar to you because she was previously the superintendent in Manchester before going to Fort Bragg, where she, for the last year, has been the principal of their Noyo Alternative High School. So she'll be their next superintendent. So that's exciting. Both of them really, really wonderful administrators. I'm excited to work with them. There's been a lot of activity at our school districts. It's hard to get to everything. I know that Charlene's going to talk more about it, but Charlene and I had the honor of going to the Pomalita Middle School back to school night, and that was a lot of fun. Got to go to a lot of classrooms. I also was able to attend the Cinco de Mayo event that Pomalita had, a community event last week. There was also last week the Career and Technical Education Showcases in Ukiah. These were all on the same day, by the way, so it was just the Ukiah circuit all in the same couple of hours actually, that they had a fashion show that was put on by their fashion class. They had a photography exhibit that is still on display by their photography class. And Mendocino High School has a CTE showcase coming up next week or the week after.
I think it's Friday night.
It might be Friday, you're right, I sent that out to you guys.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah. I also was able to attend the Big Time at Round Valley. They have an annual Big Time that it was rainy, which was really unfortunate, but Yolanda and I were able to go up and see some of the booths. They had community agencies had booths, and got to meet the superintendent, talked to the outgoing superintendent, spoke to a couple of their board members and their staff. So that was a wonderful event to drop in on. And then last week I was at a Laytonville board meeting, which was, sorry, not Laytonville, it was Leggett Valley, Unified Leggett Valley board meeting. So a long, beautiful drive to attend a board meeting with impassioned community members and their boards did a great job of, sometimes we forget that the Brown Act and things like that apply to your board no matter what size you are. And I was so impressed to see Leggett Valley taking the time to make sure that they were discussing what was on the agenda in the way that it was agendized. And anyway, that's not why I was there, but it was a great thing to see nonetheless. Also recently we had about 5, I think, Mendocino County Office of Ed employees attending Tapestry put on an event called Decolonizing Support for Native Youth and Families that was very well attended, primarily geared toward people who provide social services, mental health services to Native American youth. But there are many agencies represented, school district personnel, we were there, law enforcement, probation, and then a bunch of healthcare, mental health care service providers. It was a really well done event. As Dr. Stewart mentioned, she and I were able to go to the South Ukiah Rotary Club where she presented, and I was her paper passer outer. Well, she did a wonderful job talking about science education and next generation science standards. She even got them to participate in a very short science experiment. So she did as is her way, she did a hands-on way of demonstrating how teachers would engage students in thinking and in learning, rather than just presenting them with information, but rather engaging them in the learning. And so to do that, she engaged the South Ukiah Rotary Club. You could see a little bit of hesitance, but they got into it pretty quickly. Also, Mendocino County Office of Ed had a booth at the Dia del Nino event that took place in Ukiah. It's a pretty happening event, so I was really pleased that Kristen and some of her staff had a booth there. And then Eric Crawford, who we've hired as our director of career in college, he has been the construction corps teacher for since 2017, I think. And so he is currently there is currently a construction corps group going on with students primarily from Willits and Ukiah. And so I had the privilege of speaking to that group on resume writing and job application interviews, and they were very engaged. I was not sure that I had a 2-hour presentation.
Wow.
That's a long time to talk to high school students. And they had, and I was given permission at the very beginning, you don't have to go 2 hours, which I thought was great, because I was ready for dinner. But they had questions, and they were really engaged and kept up with questions. So one thing that I bet many of us didn't have to think about when we were in our late teens and early 20s applying for a job was we probably didn't have to think about what videos might be online that we did not put online about, but something that we did and that we now regret. And so there are high school students and a lot of people that realize that their next employer may Google them and find something that they can't take down because somebody else posted a video of them at a moment in their life that they're not particularly proud of, and how to deal with that in the interview process. So it was really, really, they were very engaged and engaging you. And then I just wanted to bring up my last thing, which is this was Staff Appreciation Week, and I know I sent out the invitation to you, but we have 3 staff appreciation luncheons this weekend. This week we have Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. There are different staff appreciation events, so I wanted to make sure you guys all know about that. And that concludes my report. And I'm keeping a close eye on Charlene. Poor thing.
And the more nervous I get, which now I'm nervous, then I do more.
I was gonna say, it's nice to get these little notices about things that are happening.
Great, I'm glad that you that's helpful. And if you're not on social media, if you're considering it, that's where I find out about most of these things. I've asked superintendents, hey, send me an invite or let me know when you have stuff. That's an awful lot to ask of superintendents to send out a particular email to a particular person. And so I mostly, between me and Brooke primarily, she also keeps a close eye on things. So, but if you are on social media and you wanna follow all the school districts and all the charters and the schools, that is such a wealth of information, to find out what's going on and see what parents are also paying attention to.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? All right, we'll move to final item, board member reports. Start there and work this way.
Okay, thank you. Well, this is the end of CCBE, as most of you know, California County Board of Education. And just as a report, and I hope, I'm hesitant about going ahead because frankly, the dialogue that's been coming from CSBA has been boilerplate. And they have made the same statements over and over, so they had, in fact, I appreciated Veronica sending us a notice about the webinar, and I had already registered, and then frankly, I just didn't attend, because what I heard in the letter that they sent to every one of us in the state was the same things that have been stated before. But, and I don't think that in all of the exchanges, I have never seen a rationale for the change. They're defending the change and saying how things are gonna go ahead with it and how that's all gonna consider, and we talk about transition groups and so forth. But it was a hard fact on November 29th, and nobody, at least as far as I knew, was really brought into the decision process. So I'm disappointed in CSBA for doing that. They do assure us that 1380, which is a Senate bill that's going forward, that's gonna change charter schools and, or the regulations around districts and counties and the way that they deal with charter school applications. I don't know the detail of it, but it's the sort of thing that we all should be aware of. I think we had exposure to the process, and this current board, I think with the exception of Drew, really has had two opportunities to exercise what a county board is supposed to do. Anyway, the statements that I have heard coming from CSBA about the new organization, I just have to say they sound disingenuous, and I'm really sorry about that. So I'll get the bad stuff out of the way, or at least the grumble out of the way. The other thing I wanted to share, because we've talked about it within the county office, is the teacher recognition. During this last period, I went to the one in Humboldt County. Of course, I have a personal reason for going to their teacher recognition, because one of the awards is in the name of my wife. And so that brings me there, and they're still gracious enough to let me stumble around there. But they have, I just want to remark that the importance of teacher recognition from the site level, and that's the kind of, they're called Excellence in Teaching Awards, and they vary in numbers. This year, the ones at Humboldt there were 9. And there were the Career Achievement Awards, which is the one that's called the Gene Olson Award. There were 2. One was the previous county superintendent, Gary Eagles, and they recognized him. But it is the kind of thing where Excellence in Teaching Awards that are given at the county level, but the nomination comes from within the school itself. It's always amazed me at the way that wells a school building together. because somebody on the faculty saw somebody else as being excellent, and then the whole school comes around and realizes, wow, there's something really special here, and we're part of it, and it was just a wonderful thing. The other thing I wanted to remark about was Ukiah High School did something that's not very often done. They call it a miracle. They developed a new CIF sport, or got involved in a CIF sport, and that boys volleyball. Now, boys volleyball seems different because we think in terms of Title IX or whatever, that's a girls' sport, and by and large it is. But there is a major program within CIF and among larger schools and so forth for boys volleyball. It takes different skills, it's a different kind of contact, and it's the kind of thing where a small group can plan, and it's an interesting sport, even if you see it played in sand. So the fact that they put that together, but the part in the article which was part of the UDJ some weeks ago, or some days ago, was that in building a new program, which on a secondary level requires, first of all, funding, you have to staff it, you have to insure it, you have to hook yourself into making some kind of schedule, and you better be sure that the first year you're gonna get your tail kicked pretty much wherever you go play. And I think their season record this year was 3-14. But the coach emphasized improvement, and that was important to me to get to read that, and kudos to what it takes, because of the approval has to come all the way from the superintendent on that. Otherwise, you can have a club team and you can play other club teams. But if you want to get into the milieu of California Interscholastic Federation sports program, which is complex and in some ways can be expensive for a school. And of course, you know, you only fund athletics with tickets that you sell at the door for those sports that are more popular, if you will, so that perhaps swimming gets funded by football or whatever. Anyway, I was impressed by the fact that Ukiah High School put that together. And then finally, I wanted to remark on something that I said to all of you about the use of cell phones in schools, and the way that some schools are beginning to manage it in a way that takes some preparation, but is a valuable thought, I think, for anybody. But it would take some backbone on the part of the school that was doing it. And that's that students come to school, those that bring their cell phones, because generally speaking, their use is forbidden in class. But it's one of those things where the teachers wring their hands and spend their time, and then during the free time in secondary schools by and large, whether it's lunch, breaks, or whatever, the phones are out. Kids aren't talking to each other, they aren't sharing things, and almost all of the social disturbance, the confrontation, the drama that goes on between students is generated in this electronic way. So this school districts, and many are, developed a program where you bring your phone to school, but you put it in a pouch. We don't take it from you, put it in a pouch, it's locked up. And you bring it to school, and you have your pouch, it's yours, you carry it with you. And when you go home, you take it out of the pouch and you can use it. And you get used to the fact that my phone's going off in there, but I'll deal with it later. And I was really impressed, not only with the article, it was a Washington Post one, but also I was impressed with the writing, and whoever wrote it demonstrated that they knew an awful lot about communities and schools and the way parents relate. Like, he's got to have a phone at school in case I call him, et cetera, and those other things that go on. So I was impressed, and I wanted to share it, and I hope it gains some traction around here, because I have thought about it deeply and I have not considered, I have not found a downside to it. Because do we want kids using their cell phones in school? No, by and large, but we preach that and we really haven't been able to back it up. And when they're free within the school setting, we don't seem to limit it. And that's really where it takes its toll as well. Even if a kid behaves himself and doesn't bring it out in class, when he's out doing other things that is free or moving about, it's out and they're paying attention to something other than school. One of the 8th grade boys that was interviewed had the wisdom to say, when we're in school, there's nothing else going on. And if you think about it, that's pretty important. When I'm in school, there's nothing else going on. And that's somebody that's having enough wisdom to understand that's what they're there for. So, a long report, but thank you. If you haven't had a chance to read the article, please do. And maybe I sent it to Deb Kubin, but that's a lot to ask. Anyway, any questions on that? Otherwise, I'm done, and thank you for listening.
And I'll say I read the article, and I've heard of those yonder phone pouches before. I did see a video online where someone telling all the ways you can break into them.
Yeah.
Like a pen or just find a little magnet.
Oh, sure.
Definitely, I'm out of school right now and cell phones are rampant, even with
Yeah.
a reported zero cell phone policy.
And to address it, rather than wave your hands at it. We look at feet when we don't do what we say we do. We say, don't use your phone. No. But then they do. And what do they see in the school structure that's there to serve them but a porous operation, which at best is simply waving at something, telling them not to do. And that in itself is negative. And so you can break into them. Break into one, guess where that phone lives from that point on? In the vice principal's desk, bottom drawer. So I think so many of the ways to cheat with the pouch are simply managed. I mean, you can even indicate that to a parent that, hey, don't let your kid bring the phone to school. But with a summer or some kind of period of time, rather than Monday morning we're banning them, but giving community a time to listen to a discourse about why they need to not be in school or use in school. But it was the first time that I've heard anybody really talk about don't text in class and all that other stuff.
There's definitely a place and time for those that like the yonder pouch. I know I've had to use them before. I like to go to live comedy. And I'm gonna go see Wanda Sykes, and I went to Amy Schumer, and they do not want to be televised. It's like, you may not video. What? You're taking my phone away? But I understand it, because you're paying for that content. A lot of concerts nowadays, you have to, I hate to see it boil down to that though, in a school setting, because that's creating another whole area of oversight. And somebody's responsible for everybody's cell phones. But anyway, that's your,
Oh,
I didn't know,
thank you.
that's on
We
yours.
all have thoughts on that.
Mine, I'll go on if are you ready?
Please.
Okay. On a brighter note, I had an excellent time in Potter Valley. I had the extreme pleasure of attending Grandparents' Day. We know it's not until September. I don't know why they do it early, but I'm really thankful that they did. They honored the grandparents in true Potter Valley fashion. If any of you have ever attended anything out there, the whole community gets involved. I saw people I haven't seen in years. And my kids went to Redwood Valley School, but they all sort of combine at the high school level. So we got to watch performances, and Becky Jeffries has pictures for you. We sat up high in the back, and we were discussing, we probably shouldn't take photos of other people's kids, but we were far enough back where you probably couldn't see their faces. But the one where the kids dressed up like a rainbow, and they did it somewhere over the rainbow, the Brother Is version of it. and the kids dressed up, color coordinated, and a couple kids down in front had little clouds that they made out of either tulle or something puffy. I'd look at Becky and she'd be crying, and she'd look at me, and it was for different songs we'd be crying. It was like, and we're not even a grandparent of any children there, so I can imagine how touched the actual grandparents were. But I'm sorry you couldn't attend.
I know.
You had an
We
administrative
had, yes, all the
function.
superintendents were here except for Carter Valley.
Yeah.
He was not here.
Because, and we didn't stay for the barbecue afterwards, but, everyone was wonderful. I kind of feel like I shouldn't bring up the incident that happened, but I just did want to voice a little bit. I know it's really emotionally charged, the gun incident. I just wanted to shout out to how, professionally all that was handled. We've all talked about what if it happens in Ukiah, you know, and, Deb Cuban Guts, all that backlash for the fences, and if anyone knows me in my background, I've always been a proponent of the safety. And I know everyone's, you know, math and English and history and the core, but school safety is such a big issue. And so that one just really hit home for me and so our local news person, Daniela Sands, you know, she puts it on there, on the Facebook site. And I click on it, there's 480 or 500 immediate comments. And her area, that's my constituency area. Probably others as well. But I felt obligated. I spent an hour and a half, I think, reading, because I knew the parents were writing paragraphs, and I wanted to know how the parents felt. And so many parents, some parents I knew, you know, about what am I gonna do with my kids? Am I gonna move them on, you know? It's just such a supercharged emotional issue, and I think it probably affected a lot of families. I'm a grandma, my kids have been grown and gone, you know, out of schools for years, but I'm still very, I still care, my heart's still in it, and I think it was handled wonderfully, and I still pat them on the back for putting the fences up at the schools. I know it's just a stepping stone, and I know that they got highly criticized for it, but I just wanted to say kudos to everybody that handled it well.
I went to a talk at the Mind Institute at UC Davis on trauma-informed teaching, which was very interesting. One of the big takeaways that the presenter talked about was that every behavior is saying something. And you want to figure out what the behavior is saying and why it's saying that, which I find pretty interesting. I enjoyed. Other news, I'm almost done with my teacher credentialing program. Been quite a journey, really empathize with anyone who's got a teaching credential in a way that I had not before. Because boy is it hard, boy is it really hard. But yeah, big shout out to everybody who's helping me along the way there. And that's it for me.
I didn't plan on saying anything about it, I just can't resist commenting on the cell phone issue. I always remember that it was many years ago, they brought in a brain expert to talk to the faculty where I was teaching. And he had just all kinds of interesting information about it, but one of the things he cautioned people about is that it's so important for young children to learn how to visualize things. When you read to them, they do that, okay? You're creating a situation there that they have to imagine. And there's a part of the brain that develops from doing that. And if you have something that does all the visualization for you, it doesn't develop. And then I also had a teacher's aide one time, and he was quite a brilliant man. He had a degree in mathematics, and he had gone to medical school for several years and then dropped out, and he was working as my teacher's aide. And he was one of these people who claimed to be sensitive to radio waves and stuff. And so I asked him, do you have any science on this? And he gave me a study that was done by a New Zealand company in San Francisco. And they set up circles around the Sutro Tower at different distances away from the Sutro Tower. And then they went in and they looked at medical statistics within those circles. And they found that close to the tower, you had a much higher incidence of childhood leukemia in particular. And they even said people who lived on the ridges were different from people who lived in the valleys in San Francisco. So it was pretty convincing evidence that there are some hazards to this. I have an 18-year-old grandson, he turned 19 yesterday. And I had had a conversation with him about that constant cell phone usage. And you know, the thing I told him was, you know, you need to know where the signal comes from, because if it's coming from over here, you don't want the phone on this side. You want the phone on this side, or if it's, you've got it in front of you, you don't want the signal coming from behind, you want the signal coming directly to your phone, not going through your body. But he's really struggling with a malignant brain tumor. And you know, you look around for a lot of different reasons about why you know, he was 17 when he got it, why a 17-year-old kid would get terminal cancer. And you know, you can't help but think maybe that cell phone is a factor. And so it's just something that I think everyone needs to consider. On a positive note, the Mendocino Community School and Mendocino Unified, they're having their CTE Expo that you mentioned this Friday. I think it starts at 4 o'clock. I think it ends at 8:30. I looked at the webpage and it's a little bit different this year. They always did it in the community school, but this year they're doing it in the theater. So there seems to be a little more emphasis on entertainment. But, you know, I always like to point out that at Mendocino High School, did such a wonderful job in developing the CTE courses. He went back to superintendent Paul Tishman, and he had a connection with our superintendent, Kim Matheson, and they developed all of these courses. And you know, unfortunately, too many people, they have this idea that CTE, that's for kids who aren't going to go to college. And it's not the case at all. I just can't tell you how many of my former students picked on something in either video or audio or the culinary class, or and they went off to college and they studied it, and that's where they're working, you know, and they're being, you know, Ted Williams, our representative on the county board, hung out in that computer lab all the time, and that's what he's doing. He's working in technology,
That's
you know. So it's, I just really think that it's something that we used to be in charge of. The county actually ran the CTE programs, but we've sort of turned it over to the districts. But it's just really important to promote those programs. I used to hang out in the electronics lab once in a while, and one of the things I observed there that was so interesting is there were students who were more hands-on, who weren't so successful in my class, who were doing well in electronics. But I also ran into students there who were so brilliant, they were bored in my class, and they were finding the challenge there in electronics. So, you know, it just fills gaps. That's it for me.
Thank you.
Good. These are all interesting. Two things. When Nicole and I went to, now I can believe it. It was interesting. We got to go in at the beginning of a band practice, which we didn't hear much. We were just traipsing through. And anyway, then we got to a couple, I guess, English classes that what we're doing.
We went to a bunch of classes.
Yeah, anyway, we just went through and it was fun, and the school was impressively neat, I thought. And I don't think they didn't know we were coming, you know, it wasn't like they were prepared. So I figured they did it most of the time. And the students took pride in it. Then I went to Brookside, the elementary in Willits, to their open house. And it turned out to be really fun because a lot of my former students were there with their students. So anyway, I just got to see a lot of friends. And then I think that's it. I think that's about all that would be interesting.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
With that, we'll move to 8.1. Our next board meeting is gonna be a regular board meeting and a public hearing, June 10th.
And it's happening here.
Happening here. Is the time still 10?
In this room as well.
In
What
this
is
room.
that public hearing?
That's an LCAP public hearing, it's a required meeting. And budget, and LCAP and the budget that goes with it.
All right, that brings us to 8.2, adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Over here, second here. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. And I wanna say I don't have COVID.
Just get that into the minutes
And I
before we
get
close out.
nervous and I start coughing more,
No worries.
so